All right, so I did a quick intro in Korean. We'll switch to English. Why don't we do a very brief introduction of the panelists? So if you can spend 1 minute about yourself, maybe start with Yigal.
Start with me?
Yes.
Start from the old one.
We're in Korea.
My name is Yigal Erlich. I'm from Israel, born in Israel. I am a venture capitalist for many years. I was working in the government as the chief scientist some 30 years ago. After that, established venture capital in Israel, the first one. Since then, we invested in hundreds of companies, and Israel became, after we started 30 years ago, a big hub for startup companies, startup nation. Today, I'm having here some operation in Korea, a fund that invests in companies, in startup companies, which have a mutual interest between Korea and Israel. So far, we invested in 40 companies. 10 of them came from Israel, and they invested about $350 million.
Right. Maybe Thomas or Michael or Richard, whoever ready, just go in.
It feels like you're going by the age, so I want to go last. All right. I'm born Korean. 안녕하세요. Grew up Canadian and working American. So I've been through different places, and at least two of these countries have become epicenters of artificial intelligence. So I spent my life in startups, big tech. I wanted to learn business side of things, so I went to strategy consulting. So I went through my stages of it, and before starting StratMinds as the founder, I was the chief innovation officer and head of applied artificial intelligence and automation at IBM out of the San Francisco office, but covering the global services. And 2018, early 2018, like I think it was January, I saw some remarkable demo of what AI can do, which was absolutely shocking, despite the fact that I spent a number of years in AI. And then I told my boss that I need to leave because I want to work with startups. And I'm going to help corporates adopt this AI and invest in companies that are doing AI. And everyone said, you're crazy. AI is fad. It's going to pass. 2018, January, you're absolutely nuts. Just come back to us. We'll give you a better job. And some of the VC funds, who eventually became investors in our fund, told us that just join us as a partner. You're doing a BS job. Don't do that. But fortunately, I stuck with it, and some amazing partners joined me. So we're glad we stuck with AI.
I'll go next. Yeah, my name is Michael Jeon. Nice to meet you. Good morning. I am Korean as well by blood. I grew up in both Korea and the U.S. And Australia. I went to Berkeley, where Mickey and I share
Go
the
Bears.
alma mater. Go Bears. And studied computer science. My first job was software engineering, but quickly I went over to the dark side after my MBA. Years later, I joined Samsung Ventures, Samsung's venture capital arm. And for a period of time over there, I headed up their European and Israeli investments as well in their early years of exploration. And then at some point, similar to Richard, I said, if I don't get out of Samsung, before I fulfill my 10 years there, I will be stuck at Samsung forever, and I didn't want to do that. And so I ended up joining one of our portfolio companies that was in the AI space in the mid-2010. So this was a conversational AI company called MindMeld, which I joined as their head of business operations. And then years later, we were lucky enough to get acquired by Cisco Systems. So that was a nice exit. The reason that I went over to the other side to be on the startup side is because I thought that experience would eventually make me be a better investor later on. And so then after Cisco, I came back to venture capital. Now I'm part of a firm called Solasta Ventures, which is based in San Francisco. We invest in deep tech, which includes AI. And Solasta Ventures is the US subsidiary of Aju IB Investment, based here in Seoul, Korea.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Thomas. I am French, from Paris. Actually, I spent all my life between Asia. I was based in Tokyo for many years, and in the US as well. And now I'm back to France. I've been in innovation all my life in the corporate world. So I was working for Vinci. Vinci is the large construction group in France, and they operate globally. All my life I've been advocating for innovation, and in those large infrastructure firms like construction firms, engineering firms, oil and gas, I realized it's very difficult to innovate, and even more difficult to work with startups, because you are dealing with very large capex, very large risks, and the decision makers, they tend not to trust the new startups that don't have the credentials. So I set up as a mission Impulse Partner, the firm that I founded 10 years ago, to help bridge the gap between great startups, and you have a number of great startups around the world, and especially in Israel, where we also operate, and the corporate world. So in a way, we help to find clients for startups, and we help to find use cases for those startups. And that's been great. We are now a team of 50 people. We operate in Europe, in the US. We have an innovation center in Israel, and we are also in Korea, Japan. And we are not investing. We are more a strategy firm and not investing directly in startups.
Cool. So these are the great panelists. So we'll start with hearing your thoughts about the overall market landscape. So AI has been a big buzzword. AI is going to change the world. The stock price of many AI companies has been going up and up and up until this summer. But on the other hand, there are also we hear a lot of these thoughts and opinions about it's a bubble, it's too much. So we've been seeing that in the stock market during the last 2 months. What are your general assessment about the overall market and how people are reacting around AI? Richard?
I don't think it's hyped enough, to be honest. When you look at individual deals, yeah, there are some companies that are, it would feel like they're smoking something. You're like, what are you building? What are you doing? And how are you getting that valuation? But at the same time, there are companies that are building something really quite remarkable. And some of these companies do not necessarily reveal everything. They are private companies, at least the companies you are dealing with. And when you look at them, you wonder if AGI were to arrive in a handful or 2 handful of years, does it really matter how much valuation you give it right now? Because virtually everything that we do with our brains will be done better or done equally as well by the machine. So I think how you look at what this technology can be or will do for the world is something else. From that perspective, I think it's a little bit heartbreaking for me to say this as a Korean, because I'm still born Korean, and that never leaves me. I think Koreans might be missing that aspect of AI quite considerably.
Just on the general state of the market, the way that I see it is it's astounding how much advancements have pushed us forward over the last just 3 to 4 years. I think the AI advancements over the last 3 or 4 years completely made all of the cumulative decades of research in AI, traditional AI, since the beginning of AI in the 50s and 60s, completely obsolete almost overnight. And if you look at the state-of-the-art modern AI models, there are many areas where the artificial intelligence today is greater than or equal to the human intelligence today in many areas. And so if you believe that artificial intelligence greater than equal to human intelligence, then obviously the potentials are really, really high. There's no doubt in my mind. But there are a couple of things that still need to be figured out. I think one is purely from a business perspective. What's the business model? How do we create profits, cash flow, all that stuff? Can we do that? We still don't know when it's going to happen, where it's going to come from, how it's going to happen. So there's that big question mark there. From a technological standpoint, I kind of, sure, ChatGPT works wonderfully and it's amazing, but I compare that to a prototype that's still in a university lab, because it's proven that the technology works really well, but it costs a lot of money to build it, costs a lot of money to run it, it costs a lot of energy to run it. And so it's sort of like an early, let's say a semiconductor product that hasn't been scaled yet to be fully commercialized. So I think there's a lot of questions out there that need to be answered. And therefore, I think that's why the market, especially the stock market around some of the AI-oriented stocks is very, very jittery. And there's a camp of people that think, obviously the potentials much, much outweigh anything that we can imagine, versus there's another big camp that thinks the potentials are probably below some of the market capitalizations of these stocks suggest.
And Yigal, you showed me an interesting graph on this point. Do you want to talk about it?
Yes, you can show the graph, by the way. But AI is a technology, and in the last years, in the last 3-4 years, it was spread over many areas, like medicine, industry, retail, and it continued to spread to many areas. And you speak about the market, and the people who are looking at new technologies. The expectations are very high. And the graph that I wanted to show you is something that Gartner did a few years ago about certain technologies. So as you can see in this graph, many emerging technologies that started even in 2019 are now on the way to get to the peak. But some of them are getting less expectation before they get to the peak, because people start to understand that these technologies maybe will not be implemented. And some of them, even they cross the peak, they start to move down, like automatic vehicles, which were very high expectation in the beginning. Now, as you know, is cooled a bit. What is interesting in this graph is that after we came back to some technologies came back to a normal phase, which is start with manufacturing and sales, you see that it hardly can get to the high expectation. It's always less than what people expected. And that's I believe, is going to be with certain application of AI, not all, because as we see, in the last year, the success of NVIDIA is different than you can see in this graph. But most of the areas that AI will be involved in, I believe, will not get to the high expectation.
If I ask you to point where we are with AI on this graph, where would you point?
Well, there are many AI. Just as an example, you have the edge AI. Yeah. You see, edge AI, it's what they call the AI tools which are close to the source, like cameras, AI for camera and AI for different IoT devices. This technology has a high expectation. Today, you don't see it running so fast as it was expected. So it's still on the way up, and I believe it will be exactly according to this graph. Some of it will be used, but will not get the high expectation it has. But you can see there are many other technologies. You can follow up on them and see what happened.
Yes, if I can add up on that, you're right, there are very high expectations currently on the potential in AI. And in terms of sales, the startups are not selling yet, they are just showing potential. And in the corporate world, we are seeing all our corporate clients, they all have AI use cases, pilots, but nothing is generalized. They don't even know exactly how it costs, and then they realize that if they want to deploy, they need to think about data lakes, data availability, data privacy, which is a big problem as well. And then they start to think, will AI be a competitive edge for me, or will my competitors benefit as well from AI? So the people who have the most expectations are also the one who are realizing the potential danger of AI, not for the world, but for their own business. And they are also starting to say we should be careful of what we do, how we implement it. And I am shocked by there are such high expectations, and the reality of what is happening in the enterprise world is still very, very limited. So people are doing seminars on AI, but actually nobody is doing AI, especially in the B2B large infrastructure world. There's still much to do. So.
I think a summary could be there are a lot of potential, but there are a lot of unknowns and risk. So why don't we jump to the startup world then? Because with this rise of AI, we're seeing many AI startups, but other than those who make large language model and chat services like OpenAI and many competitors, what are the area or industry of AI startup that you see are emerging right now? Richard, you want to start?
Yeah. I mean, there are multiple areas, but before I answer that question, I just want to sort of water down the conclusion about what we are seeing in terms of hype, if you don't mind. Yeah. Across the humanity's history, there is usually one innovation, like we discover fire, and nothing happens for hundreds of years or thousands of years until we figure out how to use fire to make metallic weapons and whatnot, right? Right now, there are over a dozen innovations like that happening at the same time. Quantum computing to space tech, it's a crazy world right now we live in. And when you step back and look at it, not a single one can move to the next stage without AI. AI is that critical. So if you are to look at this graph, I would say the expectations are way higher. And I'll just give two proof in the pudding type of example. One, AI has been going on for over 50 years, right? AI, to catch up to human level performance, the first time we actually said, wow, this can actually do something like humans was around 2014 when Geoffrey Hinton at University of Toronto showed the ImageNet example. And then, the progress of AI catching up to human performance was very slopey. Right now, it's vertical. It happens in weeks, days, hours. It catch up to 95 percentile human performance with this training. So this is really catching up to human level intelligence really rapidly. So, I think when I was at the think tank with the strategy firm, we thought that AI may not become that smart until like 2040, 2050. Right now, a lot of the pundits who are close to, especially the early stage companies, they think that this may happen in 2030. That's not too far away, right? The second example is, so this is a real example. So StratMinds, we are a VC firm, but we have corporate advisory function. And in the recent year, Japanese, Taiwanese, and Korean companies have called us in for help because what they realize is that my former partners at consultancies, they don't invest in the early stage, so they don't know what's happening in the early stage, so they cannot give the latest information, whereas we do. So we started advising, and one of the things that they were doing was trying to use AI across their some of the most important businesses. And this particular business, they could do only 5 widgets a day, 5 things a day. And it's like, hold on a second, this is like a huge area of the business. Why can you only do 5? It's like, we only have 25 people who are looking at this with the spreadsheets and mechanical keyboards, so you cannot go much faster. And people are getting sick, working from 5 a.m. to midnight. And we couldn't change their mind, but one of the guys collapsed. They were working too much. So we said, we can help you with this. We use AI and coding to change what they were doing. In the first hour, we ran million plus. And the next 10 days, we ran over 25 million of these widgets. And then we also discovered that if they were doing something this way, in the next 1.5 years, they will burn about $1.5 billion at expense. It's like this is a showstopper, you should not do it that way anymore. But they couldn't figure it out until they get there. So like, if you use AI, even now, without perfect AI solution, if you do it well, you can be millions of times better. And you might think that millions of times better, well, okay, that's good. I can get that from McKinsey or PwC or whatever, but million times better is not a difference between good and bad company. It's a difference between advanced civilization and not advanced at all type of civilization. So you need to really take that into consideration. Like AI can change dramatic things. Not everywhere, not ubiquitous right now, but it's coming. And to answer your question about what you're seeing, at StrandMinds, we have two groups of partners. One focused on tech, a little bit like deep tech, like Michael talked about, and algorithm, infrastructure, and so forth. And then another group, these two leading partners are amazing product and UX experts. They added 2 billion users to their products, so they know this stuff pretty well. And we are looking at a few key areas of massive development in AI. Because AI, so far, you may probably think that, oh, ChatGPT, it's all talk, but it doesn't do anything for me. But it's about to transition from all talk to actually getting shit done in short while. So we recently did an investment in a couple of companies like that. So they are agentic, and the goal of the company is to make it possible to create a unicorn with just one founder. You don't need employees. You can do it. That type of idea. And another group has figured out a way to price, pricing exercise for the likes of Samsung or IBM or any major Fortune 50 companies. Their projects can be $50 to $100 million projects, because when you do pricing right by $1, you can make $1 to $5 billion that year. So imagine, it's worth spending $100 million. This company is changing that. They're making it almost near real time and entirely automated with AI, right? So things like this is happening, so we are paying attention to it. But kind of like the example I gave you earlier, if you don't do it well, you can burn billions of dollars. A lot of Korean companies, they are using usually 1 or 2 AI models. In California, San Francisco, where Michael and I are about to become neighbors, I just found out, there are companies that are using 100+ models, right? How do you actually make that happen? And there are some really interesting areas. One is how to actually use 100 models effectively. So there are companies that are figuring out how to orchestrate, route, and switch different AI models near real time, really fast, with absolute accuracy. So that's super interesting. And the other one is, how do you not burn $1 billion but make AI ubiquitous? So there are companies that are doing very advanced chips, which are about 20 and soon about 50 times faster than NVIDIA's GPUs in terms of AI inferencing. Those companies are very interesting, and one of our funds recently did a deal with the Grok, for instance. So this is a huge progress, because when AI is 50 times or 20 times faster than the fastest right now, it can do something pretty crazy, and happy to share maybe after the session.
A quick follow-up question. Let's make this quick. If a company runs 100 AI model, what will be the cost then?
It actually becomes about 90 to 95% cheaper at a higher performance level than if you just used one. Yeah, and this is the area. These are the areas that are not necessarily very well known. So we've been advising some of the Korean and Japanese corporations about this.
I see. Interesting. Okay, whoever ready, just jump in. But if you can also add a specific companies in this regard that you are interested in or you invested in, that would be great as well. While answering this question.
Yeah, I'll go. The latest AI investment that we made, and we're a mid to later stage investor, so we come later stage than Richard, and I really like that pricing optimization company. So when it comes up for future financing, let us know. But the latest one that we invested in is Cohere, and apologies to Mickey because it's an LLM company. But we were very excited to go into Cohere recently because, as you may or may not be aware, it's a purely enterprise-focused LLM company. And so while the underlying technology from an AI standpoint may be very, very similar to what OpenAI is doing or Anthropic is doing, I think their product design, their deployment model, their user experience, and the fact that it's highly, highly specialized around specific business use cases and how they go to market are very different. And our, one of the criteria that we used to assess this opportunity obviously fell on, I think it applies to many AI startup company evaluation, but we looked at the founders, and Aidan Gomez, the founder and CEO, is one of the original authors of the Transformer thesis called Attention is All You Need. And then he has another superstar engineer, Patrick Lewis, who is one of the original inventors, if you will, of RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, which I think is essential in a business setting. And so we had this huge thesis that, it's great to have very horizontal, internet-wide, data-trained, OpenAI-like models, but in order to create real value, especially in enterprise and business, you need to have a more dedicated a solution like Cohere. And on our part, we introduced the company. Well, you asked earlier about Korea versus US and Europe. Our firm, being of Korean heritage, we introduced Cohere to some of the top cloud operators and system integrators of Korea, so that technology can flow cross-border. And so we're very excited about that. I think the fact that this round was joined by SAP, Oracle, Salesforce, Cisco, Fujitsu, speaks volumes about sort of our thesis and validate it. So we were very excited about that.
Can you share what was the valuation?
I think it's public, so it was it was in the billions. So on an absolute scale, it comes off as being pretty rich, right? It was a $5 billion valuation, but it's fractions of OpenAI or Anthropic for that matter.
The latest OpenAI valuation was 100 bill estimated. Okay, got it. Yigal, Tama, you want to add anything?
I've been looking specifically into generative AI for automating construction works. So the design of building. And the design of building or infrastructure is a very manual process, even though it's just respecting codes, building codes. So this is something that AI can easily do instead of a human, and it can actually do it better, because not only faster, but better, because just imagine when you design a building like this one. Everything is done manually, and there are numbers of errors and mistakes that needs to be improved. So two firms that I would like to mention. One is called Augmenta AI. They are based in Canada, and they are pioneering the application of Gen AI into construction. So like how to design electrical systems, how to design piping systems. Very simple things, but that takes hours for men and women to do. And another very good firm that is starting from Europe in Norway is Consigli, and they're also very strong. You can just, let's say you're an architect, you draw the image of what you want to build, and the AI will build exactly what you want, and it will specify all the materials, it will calculate the environmental footprint and so on. So it's extremely powerful. So in the end, you end up saving a lot of time in the design stage, which is where it takes a lot of time for projects.
Now, then the company like that, will their valuation be also in billions or 100 mils, roughly?
No. It's companies who are using AI for a specific use case. So their valuation is typically 10 million max.
10 million max.
But at the same time, they have revenues, they have clients. I mean, they are not pitching for the next AI thing. They're actually using AI for everyday business. But then the problem is the maturity of the market. Like I said earlier, most of the firms, they are still in discovery mode on AI. So they may do pilots on some project, but large-scale deployment is still many years before it comes. It's a question of transformation of digital maturity of companies.
Yigal?
Just comment, Thomas. The augmented technology, if you can see on the chart that I showed before, you see the expectation in the beginning was high, but look what happened to Meta, that invested tons of dollars into this technology and decided to back off, completely. So this is type of things that you have to be careful before you start investments, of course, because at the end you can find yourself with zero return. But you ask for example, I can tell you one of them that is using AI tools, and it's in the medical field, which I think, I believe it's going to be a huge area for AI. If we talk about the future, I think this is one of the best area to get maybe kind of the Deca. But still has to be seen. But the company we invested in is a small company that decided to develop, using AI, an ultrasound device that anyone can navigate it. You know, ultrasound to navigate, to find the right picture is a problem, and only special people can do it. So by training 5 to 6 hours, anyone using the AI, or machine learning as we call it, you can do the navigation and get to the right picture you want to see. This is one use of the AI. The other one, of course, is how you decode what you see. So the AI came here as a tool to analyze a lot of data and get to the right answer for what you see in the picture. So if you're using this kind of technology, you can get fast and accurate result for emergency case, like a heart attack or something like that. So this company now is finishing the development size. Getting to the sales side, it's rather difficult. And I know that you're going to ask the valuation of such company.
Yes.
It's now not a big valuation, so I think it could be now $30 or $40 million. But once they will start to sell, and that, by the way, another aspect that if you want to talk about it, the status of the market, of the stock market. Today, growth companies have a problem. You know, investors are a bit reluctant from growth company. You see it in the prices. So companies which have no sales could be a problem. But I believe that this type will be, of growth company will come back to the market. And a company like I described before can get, hundreds of millions.
Now for those AI companies, I assume that running an AI company will be very expensive. It could be very expensive. What will be your advices for them in order to manage their funding more efficiently? Let's make this really quick, but if you have any tips or tricks to manage their funding more efficiently, what would that be?
Well, I mentioned a few things. One is use the right technology. As I mentioned with the router of the models, you can reduce the cost and increase the performance. Number of our portfolio companies end up doing that with a significant improvement to their the bottom line. The second thing is you want to figure out the business before you start building all the big tech behind it. Otherwise, you end up wasting a lot of money. Every time you pivot, you have to throw away a bunch of stuff. But the third thing that we got into, the real core of the discussions with some of our portfolio companies, is that good AI companies are attracting great AI talent. Sometimes they have to spend quite a bit. So let's just, for the sake of argument, it costs $1 million to hire an AI person. It costs $100,000 to hire a database person. Which one should you do more of, right? So long story short, some of our companies ended up acquiring another company that does the database because it doesn't make sense to try to build that competency. It doesn't create the same level of value. So the ruthless prioritization of what it is that the company stands for and what they should focus their resources on. I think those three things that I just mentioned, like the right tech, the right order, and then right allocation and prioritization become the key for survival in this market.
If I could add to Richard's comments, well, first of all, it feels like all these companies are raising hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, just to give half of those to NVIDIA, and it becomes NVIDIA's revenue, which is nice for them. But just to go back and add to Richard's comments, I think, to the point of, you should figure out what your business is going to be before start, developing models. I tend to agree quite strongly, actually. I think, especially if you're a B2B AI company, I think it's imperative for you to understand what specific use cases you're going after and what specific problems you're solving. And that can narrow down the domain of the training data or the data sets that you need to to train your models. And you don't need 100 billion or even or trillions of parameters to make that work at a very high level of accuracy. So I think the more specialized you are and the better that you have an understanding of what problem you're solving for a particular industry or solution or business, I think you can be more cost effective.
Another aspect, you know, in Israel, for instance, we have about 9,000 startups. 2,000 out of them, or 2,200, are using AI technologies. Now, the government came to the conclusion that in order to increase the number of companies that will use AI, and it's costly, so they have a project first they allocate $250 million for companies to work together in order to find, the right ways or to save efforts in their development. And also they decided to buy a supercomputer that these companies can use in order to make...
Government buys them? Government buys them?
Yes.
Government buys it, wow.
To speed the development. So the problem of many companies that using AI is the lack of GPUs. You have to pay for the cloud, and if you don't have enough capacity, you have to stay in line. So this is type of things that governments can solve because you have to, invest a lot of money in supercomputers or in means that can help companies. And so far, it's one step, and I believe that it will be good for developing these type of companies and save money.
Very interesting.
Yeah, just to comment on your point, also, as you know, Europe is also fighting against the US in the war on what models they should use. So the French government, but also all the European governments, they are pushing hard companies to use local solutions, like we mentioned Mistral before. But so it's really a question of independency from the US. Yeah. So it's becoming a political issue. So the government will also help. I don't know how, either through financing a model or financing a supercomputer, but there is a strong incentive from government. And let me give you an example. All our nuclear power stations are managed. And you have a lot of things that you can do, and they are starting to use AI. But the question is, what AI do you use when you run nuclear power stations? Do you use US-based models, or do you want to own your data and to have access to your data? Even if you use Amazon Cloud or Microsoft Cloud, there is always a concern that whatever you do can go to the US. So this is a very strong political stance now. And to come back to the questions of the startups, what they should do in order to continue raising money, I'm a strong believer in sales and revenues. So, and the last 3 years of VC up and downs have shown that it's better when you have clients, when you have revenues, when you can challenge and validate your use cases. So the best way to find investors is to have a good track record of clients, I would say.
Believe it or not, we are almost out of time. So let's try to hit one last very important question. So what do you think that we need to see in order to, what do you think need to happen in order for us to see the next unicorn or decacorn? And do you believe it's better to focus on a niche market or a very specialized application, or focus more on the LLMs and the more general use cases? And do you have any specific AI technology example that you think will bring that company to the next unicorn? So whoever ready, just jump in.
It's a loaded question. So many questions in one. I think we'll still make more decacorns in the traditional domain from LLM to the automation. But from internet to AI, from the era of the internet to AI, when things start up, a lot of the value goes toward infrastructure, like semiconductor, data center, networking equipment, hardware, etc. But by the time it matures, it flips to the application of AI. So apps, actual businesses using AI and so forth. Like nobody says the internet company anymore, kind of like that. It becomes all the companies are using internet for their business benefits. AI is going to be like that too. And if you were to draw the pyramid, you'll say app is small triangle at the top, and the infrastructure, hardware, semiconductor is the big base right now. I think that triangle will flip. All the value will accrete to the application of it. So I think that transition, each of the transition, the shape will not invert right away, but the shape will fatten the middle section and eventually the top section as things mature. That inversion, as it takes place, I think you'll find unicorns and decacorns getting created. I think that's what we need to watch out for, and that's part of the reason why we are paying close attention to AI infrastructure, like inferencing. If I can do AI inferencing 50 times faster, 50 times and 10 times cheaper and so forth, that's dramatic, it's valuable. We will create decacorns in the process. Actually, one of the companies already approaching it pretty quickly, but we care about application, agentic, and automation to really change how AI gets incorporated into our businesses and our life.
So first, I'll talk to the should you be specialized versus what about general? Can I poll the audience? How many of you are startup founders or operators or entrepreneurs in the AI space? Hands? One, just a couple.
Okay. You need to talk to the rest of the people.
All right.
To raise.
Are the others investors? Investors in the room? Okay. Well, so I don't mean to say that it's important or not important or right or wrong to be specialized or to focus on something very niche, but my personal preference is towards that. And so, in particular, I as an investor, so I'm talking at a very microeconomic level, like what I look for. I look for category-leading companies where the leadership is driven from some kind of expertise, rather than that leadership being bought with throwing a bunch of marketing dollars to buy your market position. And I think when you do that, almost by design, because the world right now is very complex, and therefore you need specialization to be successful in many cases. That almost necessarily puts you in a specialized and niche category. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't become a unicorn or a decacorn. I think companies like Snowflake or Ginkgo Bioworks, which are very esoteric in what they do, are good examples of being highly specialized and still become very huge companies. But the reason that I personally prefer a company that's very specialized, even if that meant that the TAM might be niche, is because as a venture investor, those types of companies are more conducive to having M&A acquisition exit opportunities, which is especially in times like this where there are dearth of IPOs. I think that's very positive. So I'll pause here because I just saw a time warning.
Well, I agree with Richard and Michael, both of them, of course, saying what's going to happen. And I believe that if you are in the niche market, even if it's AI, it will be very hard to get a decacorn. Today, if you mention, as Richard said it, most of the successful companies are those who create the tools. And the application still have to be seen. And I think that in the next era, when quantum computing will go into the picture to be used, we can see that some application can get very high valuation even. And I believe that the areas that we have to look for where the potential is and not use too much is, as I said, the healthcare, the medicine, for sure. Also, it is a problem, because if you use AI to discover new drugs, for instance, it it leads you to a personal medicine. And when you get to a personal medicine, the question of monetizing is a big problem. So there are, breaks on the development and how companies will treat, the investment in new companies when they see that the market may be not exactly responsive or the business model is not exactly what they're looking for. But having said that, I think still medical will be a potential, the best potential for AI and industry, retail, which are not used too much until now. So this type of industries, if AI will penetrate, you can see many startups and high valuation.
Yeah, and I agree with everything that was said, and I would complement to say that we will see a lot of failures in niche market startups as they will confront to the market and they will have to find their business model and they will fight with competitors. So I would tend to think that the companies who will really benefit will be the low-profile infrastructure behind the startups, the one who are providing the models or the data centers and so on. That's more long-term, and whatever the usage, they will always benefit. So that's what I would think.
All right, we're out of time now. This was a really fun session. I hope we have another hour to talk more about this. But I hope that was helpful. If you have more questions, please find our panelists during this forum and get more of their insight. Thank you very much and enjoy the day. Thank you, everyone.